Maria was a beautiful and kind lady. She got married to a man called Henry. Henry seemed kind and a good husband. He provided for Maria and gave her everything she needed. But behind closed doors, Henry was a different person. He was always busy with his business and never had time for Maria. Maria was very painful that her husband couldn't even have time for her. She felt lonely and neglected. She wanted to talk to Henry about how she felt, but any time she tried to, he would just ignore her. He would tell her that he was busy and didn't have time to talk. Maria felt like she was living with a stranger. As time went on, Maria became more and more unhappy. She felt like she was just an accessory to Henry's business, not his wife. She longed for the days when Henry would spend time with her, talk to her, and listen to her. But those days seemed to be gone forever. Maria felt like she was losing herself in the marriage, and she didn't know how much longer she could take it. Henry didn't seem to notice how Maria was feeling. He was too busy making money and building his business empire. He thought that providing for Maria financially was enough, but he was wrong. Maria needed emotional support, love, and attention, but Henry was not giving it to her. Maria decided one day to talk to her husband again about the situation. She felt like she couldn't take it anymore, and she needed to express her feelings to Henry. She called him into their bedroom, and they sat down together. "Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something," Maria said, looking into his eyes. "I feel like we're not spending enough time together. We're a young couple, newly married, and I feel like we should be enjoying each other's company more often." Henry looked at her with a smile, but Maria could see the dismissiveness in his eyes. "What's wrong, Maria?" he asked. "Don't I provide for you? Don't I give you everything you need?" Maria felt a surge of frustration. "That's not what I'm talking about, my darling," she said. "I'm talking about us, our marriage. I feel like we're just existing in the same space, but we're not really connecting. I miss you, Henry. I miss spending time with you, laughing with you, talking with you." Henry chuckled and put his arm around Maria. "You're being dramatic, Maria," he said. "I'm just trying to provide for our family, so we can have a good life. That's all that matters, right?" Maria felt a pang of sadness. She realized that Henry just didn't get it. He didn't understand that their marriage was suffering, that she was feeling lonely and neglected. She felt like she was talking to a wall, and it broke her heart. "Sweetheart, I wish you could understand me," Maria said, her voice shaking. "I wish you could see that our marriage is important, that we need to nurture it, to spend time together. But it seems like you're not interested in that. You're only interested in making money, in providing for our family financially. But what about emotionally? What about spiritually?" Henry looked at her, his expression unreadable. Maria felt like she was staring into the eyes of a stranger, and it scared her. She realized that she didn't know her husband at all, and that thought was terrifying. As the discussion went on, Maria's frustration grew, and she eventually stormed off to bed, leaving Henry sitting alone in the bedroom. Henry shrugged it off and decided to go to the sitting room to watch the football game that was on TV that night. As he sat down on the couch, he couldn't help but smile and talk to himself about the conversation he had just had with Maria. "What do women want?" he said, shaking his head. "I provide her with everything she needs. There's money, a beautiful house, and anything she wants, she gets it. But that's not enough for her. She still wants my attention. Wow, is this really necessary? Is this really important?" Henry chuckled to himself as he watched the football game. He thought to himself, "If I don't give her money, she'll be complaining about that. Now I give her everything, and she still wants my attention. What's wrong with women? Oh, I see, Maria, my beautiful wife," he said to himself, "I'm so sorry. I need to make money for a better tomorrow. Giving you attention is not necessary for now. You'll understand someday. With that, Henry smiled to himself and continued watching the football game. Despite Maria's efforts to convince her husband to see reason, Henry became more serious and distant than before. He would leave very early in the morning to work and come back late at night, sometimes without even taking breakfast, before leaving. When he came back, it would often be too late for him to eat, and he would hardly spend any time with Maria. This painful routine continued for a long time, and Maria felt like she was losing herself in the process. Even on the rare occasions when Henry came back early, he would be busy counting his money, and before she knew it, it would be late, and he wouldn't have time to discuss anything with her or even play with her. Maria felt like she was walking alone in the marriage. And it was taking a toll on her emotional and mental well-being. One day, she decided to seek her mother's advice. She called her mother on the phone, hoping to get some guidance on how to navigate the challenging situation she found herself in. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something," Maria said, trying to hold back tears. "I'm really struggling in my marriage. Henry is always busy, and he never has time for me. I feel like I'm losing myself, and I don't know what to do." Maria's mother listened attentively, and then she offered some words of wisdom. "Maria, my dear, marriage is a journey, and it's not always easy. But you need to communicate with your husband, and you need to make him understand how you feel. Maybe he's not aware of the pain he's causing you," Maria's mother continued, "but you also need to take care of yourself, Maria. You need to find ways to make yourself happy, even if it's just small things. And if things don't get better, we'll have to think of other options. But for now, let's try to make it work, okay?" Maria felt a sense of relief wash over her as she listened to her mother's words. She realized that she wasn't alone, and that her mother was there to support her. She felt a renewed sense of hope. One day, Maria sat alone in the living room, shedding tears and crying. She couldn't help but ask God, "What type of marriage is this? A marriage where there is money, but there is no love. Is it not better to remain single than to be in a marriage where I am not being noticed?" She thought about how her husband, Henry, hardly had time for her. He was always busy making money, and he didn't seem to care that she needed his companionship, his presence, and his attention. Maria felt like she was just an accessory to Henry's wealth, not his wife. She felt like she was just a side chick, not the woman he loved and cherished. As she cried, she also prayed to God, "Oh God, please change my husband for good. I still love him, and I remember why I married him. I want him to love me, to play with me, to spend time with me. I want him to notice me, to care about me. Please, God, change his heart. Make him see that I need him, not just as money." As Maria finished her prayer, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that she couldn't change Henry on her own, but she had faith that God could. She wiped away her tears and took a deep breath, hoping that tomorrow would be a better day. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, Maria's birthday was fast approaching. She was overjoyed at the thought of celebrating another year of life with her lovely husband, Henry. So one day, she approached him in the living room, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Honey, my birthday is coming up soon," she said, trying to contain her enthusiasm. "I was thinking, it would be really nice if we could spend the day together, just the two of us. Maybe you could take the day off from work and we could just relax at home, play together, and enjoy each other's company." Henry looked at her thoughtfully, his expression unreadable. Maria's heart skipped a beat as she waited for his response. Finally, he spoke up. "Well, if that's what will make you happy, I'll do it," he said, his voice flat. Maria's face lit up with joy, and she threw her arms around him. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. "I don't want any gifts or anything, just your attention and presence on that day. That's all I need, Henry smiled and patted her on the back, but Maria didn't notice the hint of insincerity in his voice. She was too caught up in her own happiness and excitement. Little did she know what that day will turn into. Maria couldn't hold her joy as she went about her day. She was beaming with happiness, and everything she did seemed to be infused with a sense of excitement and anticipation. She was thrilled that her husband, Henry, had promised to spend her birthday with her, and she couldn't wait to celebrate. As she went about her daily routine, Maria's mind was racing with thoughts of the upcoming birthday celebration. She was thinking about all the delicious meals she would prepare, and how she would decorate the house to make it look festive. But most of all, she was thinking about the opportunity she would finally have to talk to Henry about their inability to have a child. Thank God that day will be the perfect opportunity to bring it up, Maria thought to herself. We've been married for over a year now, and still, no child. Maybe Henry will finally listen to me, and we can go for a medical checkup or something. Maria's heart was filled with hope and excitement as she thought about the possibilities. She was convinced that her birthday celebration would be the perfect opportunity to address the issue and find a solution. As the big day approached, Maria's excitement grew. It was December 21th, and she had planned a special celebration for her birthday. She decorated their bedroom with balloons and beautiful flowers, making it look like a romantic getaway. She then headed to the kitchen to prepare a delicious meal, carefully setting the dining table to make it look perfect. As she finished cooking and serving the food, Maria rushed to the bedroom to call her husband, Henry, to come and eat with her. But to her surprise, he wasn't in the bedroom. She quickly ran to the sitting room, thinking maybe he was there, but he wasn't. Maria's heart started racing as she wondered where her husband could be. She called out to him. "Honey, honey," but there was no response. She went outside to the compound, looking for him, but he was nowhere to be found. Getting worried, Maria approached the gate man and asked if he had seen her husband. The gate man replied that he had just left with one of the cars not long ago. Maria was shocked and felt a lump in her throat. She quickly ran back to the house, picked up her phone, and called him. When he answered, he told her that he had an important business meeting to attend to and that she could continue the celebration until he got back. He promised to join her later, but Maria was devastated. She had been looking forward to spending her birthday with Henry, and now he was telling her that he couldn't make it. She broke down in tears, feeling hurt and abandoned. Maria's tears of sadness and frustration had now turned to tears of anger and betrayal. She had waited all day for Henry to return, and now that he was finally standing in front of her, she couldn't hold back her emotions. He came back around 11 p.m. in the night. "How could you do this to me?" Maria demanded, her voice shaking with anger. "We made plans for you to take the day off and spend my birthday with me. But instead, you just left without even saying goodbye or giving me a notice. What kind of man are you?" Henry looked taken aback by Maria's outburst, but he didn't seem to understand the depth of her pain and frustration. "I'm sorry, Maria," he said, his voice flat and unemotional. "I had an important business meeting that I couldn't miss. I promise I'll make it up to you." But Maria was beyond consolation. She felt like she had been slapped in the face, and she couldn't believe that Henry could be so callous and insensitive. "Make it up to me," she repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "How can you make it up to me? By buying me a gift or taking me out to dinner? You think that's going to make up for the fact that you abandoned me on my birthday?" Henry looked uncomfortable, but he didn't seem to know how to respond to Maria's anger and hurt. He just stood there, looking at her with a mixture of guilt and defensiveness. But Maria wasn't having it. She was fed up with his excuses and his lack of emotional intelligence. "What kind of a human being are you?" Maria demanded, her voice rising to a crescendo. Do you even care about my feelings? Do you even care about our marriage? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're only interested in one thing, making money. And that's not enough for me. I deserve better than that. Maria sat on the couch, her body shaking with sobs as she angrily spoke to Henry online. How could you, Henry? How could you be so heartless? We've been married for over a year now, and there's no sign of a child. You don't even care to talk about it. All you care about is making money, day in and day out. You don't even think about your own family, about us. Maria's tears flowed uncontrollably as she continued to vent her frustrations. You hardly spend time with me, Henry. We hardly make love to each other. Everything you do quick, so you can rush out to your business or office. What do you think marriage is all about? You're playing with my emotions, Henry. You're toying with my heart. Henry stood before her, his expression a mixture of guilt and defensiveness. But Maria didn't care. She was beyond caring. She was angry, hurt, and frustrated. I'm your wife, Henry. I'm not your side chick or your mistress. I'm your wife. And I deserve to be treated with love, care, and respect. But you're not giving me that. You're not giving me anything. As Maria spoke, her voice grew louder and more intense. She was pouring out her heart, all her pain and frustration. And Henry just stood there, listening to her, his expression unreadable. But Maria didn't care. She just wanted to be heard. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to be loved. Henry's face turned red with anger as he threw his hands up in the air. Enough is enough, Maria, he shouted. If you can't see reason in me making money, fine. But stop disturbing me with your constant demands for attention and love. I'm doing all this for our future, for our children. I don't want them to suffer. Henry's voice was cold and calculating, and Maria felt a chill run down her spine. When our children come, they won't eat love or attention, he sneered. They'll need food, shelter, and clothes. And that's what I'm working for. Henry turned to Maria, his eyes flashing with contempt. If you need someone to play with, the gate man is always there. You can go and chat with him. Play with him, do whatever you want. But as for me, I'm a busy man, and I won't be bothered with your childish demands for love and attention. With that, Henry turned and walked away, leaving Maria standing alone in the sitting room, feeling stunned, confused, and utterly defeated. She stood there, frozen in shock, her mind reeling from the harsh words that Henry had just spoken. She felt like she had been punched in the gut, and she couldn't catch her breath. That night, Maria sat beside the bed, her eyes fixed on her husband's sleeping form. She couldn't believe the things he had said to her earlier that night. The words still stung, and she couldn't help but repeat them in her mind, wondering how he could be so heartless. How could he say something like that to me? Maria whispered to herself, tears streaming down her face. If you wants to play, you should play with a gate man? If you wants to chat, you should chat with a gate man? Which man that loves his wife, says such a thing? Maria's mind was racing with questions and doubts. She couldn't understand why Henry would say something so hurtful and demeaning. Was it the spirit of making money that was driving him to say such things? Or was it something deeper? Something more sinister? As she sat there, watching Henry sleep peacefully, Maria felt a deep sense of sadness and betrayal. She realized that she was married to a man who didn't care about her feelings or her needs. And in that moment, Maria felt like she was completely alone in the world. The night wore on, and Maria didn't sleep. She just sat there, watching Henry sleep, and wondering what she had done to deserve such a heartless husband. The tears continued to flow, and Maria's heart felt like it was breaking into a million pieces. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Maria continued to live a life of loneliness and isolation. Henry's behavior didn't change, and he still didn't spend much time at home. Maria felt like she was just existing, rather than living. She had tried to talk to Henry about starting her own business, but he had shut her down, saying that the time wasn't right. Maria felt frustrated and helpless, not knowing what to do with herself. As a result, Maria started to form a bond with the gate man, who would often come to chat with her and keep her company. They would talk about all sorts of things, and Maria found herself looking forward to their conversations. The gate man would sometimes come into the sitting room and watch TV with Maria. And he would even help her out in the kitchen with cooking. Maria felt like she had finally found someone who cared about her and was willing to listen to her. As the months went by, Maria found herself growing closer and closer to the gate man. She started to look forward to his visits, and she would often find herself smiling and laughing in his presence. But despite her growing friendship with the gate man, Maria couldn't shake off the feeling that something was missing in her life. She felt like she was just going through the motions, and that she wasn't truly living. One faithful day, Maria and the gate man were sitting in the living room, watching a movie and chatting. Maria was feeling more and more comfortable around the gate man, and she found herself opening up to him in ways she never had with her husband. "You know, I really appreciate you," Maria said, turning to the gate man with a smile. "You're such a nice person, and you always know how to make me feel better." The gate man looked at her with surprise, but also with a hint of pleasure. "Thank you, madam," he said. "You're very kind to say that." Maria reached out and took the gate man's hand, holding it in hers. "I mean it," she said. "I wish my husband was more like you. You're so caring and lovely. Please, can we be close friends?" The gate man looked at her with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. "Madam, I don't think that's a good idea," he said, trying to pull his hand away, but Maria held him tight. "Why not?" she asked, looking into his eyes. "I think we could be very good friends." "Very close friends." The gate man looked at her with a hint of hesitation, but also with a spark of interest. "Madam, I don't know if that's a good idea," he repeated, but Maria just smiled and leaned in closer. "I think it's a great idea," she whispered. "And I think we could have a lot of fun together." The gate man looked at her with surprise, but also with a growing sense of excitement. "Madam, anything you want, I will give to you," he said finally, his voice low and husky. "You are such a nice person, and I am happy to do anything for you." Maria smiled and leaned in closer, her lips almost touching the gate man's ear. "Thank you," she whispered. "I want us to be closer, to be more than just friends. I want us to have a special connection, one that's just between us." As she spoke, Maria's hands roamed over the gate man's body, touching his chest, his arms, his face. The gate man didn't resist, and soon he was kissing her back, his lips hot and hungry. After a few hours of making love to each other, they lay on the bed, wrapped in each other's arms. Maria couldn't help but appreciate the gate man's skills in bed. "Wow, you're so good," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "I've never felt this way before." "You're amazing." The gate man smiled, his eyes shining with pleasure. "Thank you, madam," he said. "You're amazing too." "I've never felt this way about anyone before." Maria laughed, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "I'm not madam anymore," she said. "I'm Maria." "And you are?" "I'm Johnson," the gate man replied, his voice low and husky. Maria smiled, her heart skipping a beat. "Johnson," she repeated, her voice filled with affection. "I like that name." "It suits you," Johnson smiled back, his eyes locked on Maria's. "I'm glad you like it," he said. "I like you too, Maria." "I like you a lot." Maria's heart melted at Johnson's words. She felt a deep connection with him, a connection that went beyond physical attraction. "I like you too, Johnson," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I've known you before now and forever." Johnson nodded, his eyes shining with understanding. "I know exactly what you mean," he said. "I feel the same way about you, Maria. Like we've known each other for years." As they talked, Maria and Johnson's hearts beat as one. They knew that they had found something special. Something that went beyond a physical relationship. They had found a deep and abiding connection, one that would last a lifetime. As the days went by, Maria and Johnson couldn't hide their feelings for each other anymore. Even when Henry was at home, they would still find ways to flirt and play with each other. One day, Harry walked into the living room and saw Maria and Johnson laughing and chatting together. He looked at them with a mixture of confusion and suspicion. "Hey, what's going on here?" Harry asked, trying to sound casual. Maria turned to him with a smile. "Oh, we're just chatting and having a good time," she said. "You know, Johnson is a really nice guy. We get along really well." Henry looked at Johnson the gate man, then back at Maria. "I see," he said. "Well, I'm glad you're getting along with him. But maybe you should be careful not to get too close to him, okay?" Maria raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I thought you said I could play and chat with him as I wanted." Henry looked uncomfortable. "Well, yeah, I did say that. But I didn't mean, I don't know, it's just that Johnson is a gate man, and you're my wife. I don't want people to get the wrong idea." Maria laughed. "Oh, come on, sweetheart. You're not going to start getting jealous of Johnson, are you?" "I thought you trusted me." Harry looked at her, then shook his head. No, it's not that. I don't know. I guess I'm just feeling a little left out, that's all." Maria smiled and patted Henry's hand. "Don't worry, dear. I'm not going anywhere. And besides, Johnson is just a friend. We're just having a little fun together, that's all." Henry nodded, but Maria could tell he was still feeling a little uneasy. She decided to change the subject and distract him from his suspicions. "Hey, sweetie, why don't we go out for dinner tonight?" she suggested. "Just the two of us. We can go to that new restaurant that just opened up downtown." Henry's face brightened up at the suggestion. "That sounds like a great idea," he said. "I'll go make the reservations right now." As Henry walked away to make the reservations, Maria turned to Johnson and smiled. "Thanks for understanding," she whispered. Johnson smiled back and winked at her. "No problem, my dear," he said. "I'll always be here for you." Maria's heart skipped a beat at Johnson's words. She knew that she was falling deeply in love with him, and she couldn't wait to see what the future held for them. As the days went by, Maria and Johnson's love for each other continued to grow. They would steal glances at each other whenever Henry was around, and they would find excuses to touch each other whenever they could. One day, Maria invited Johnson into the kitchen to help her cook dinner, and as they worked together, she found herself getting closer and closer to him. Finally, she couldn't resist anymore. She turned to Johnson and kissed him passionately, her heart racing with excitement. Johnson kissed her back, his arms wrapping around her waist. "I've been waiting for this moment for so long," he whispered. Maria smiled and kissed him again. "I've been waiting too," she said. "I love you, Johnson." Johnson's eyes lit up with joy. "I love you too, Maria," he said. "Forever and always." One day, Henry had left for work early that morning, leaving Maria and Johnson, the gate man, behind at home. As usual, Johnson went to see Maria and play with her. They were laughing and joking around, and before long, they started kissing each other. "I've missed you so much," Maria said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've missed you too," Johnson replied, his eyes locked on hers, they kissed some more, and then they decided to take things to the next level. They went straight to Maria's bedroom, and as they made love, they forgot about everything else, but little did they know, Henry had forgotten some documents at home and had to come back to pick them up. He pulled up to the gate and honked his horn. But no one came to open the gate. What's going on? Henry muttered to himself. Why isn't anyone opening the gate? He waited for a few minutes, but still, no one came to open the gate. He decided to park his car outside and follow the small gate inside the house. As he entered the house, he went straight to his bedroom to pick up the documents. But what he saw made his blood boil. What the? Henry shouted, his eyes wide with shock and anger. Johnson jumped up from on top of Maria, and they both looked at Henry with fear in their eyes. How could you do this to me? Henry shouted at Maria, his voice echoing through the room. How could you betray me like this? Henry's voice was shaking with anger and hurt as he spoke to Maria. Is this what you wanted? Is this what you've been complaining about? You want multiple sex every day? You want me to always be available to satisfy your desires? And when I'm not, you go and cheat on me with my own gate man? Henry's eyes were brimming with tears as he spoke. How could you do this to me? How could you betray me like this? You've treated me with disrespect, with contempt. You've slapped me in the face with your infidelity. Maria looked at Henry, her eyes filled with shame and guilt. Harry, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but Henry cut her off, his voice rising in anger. Sorry? Sorry isn't enough. You've broken my trust, you've shattered my heart. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. Johnson, the gate man, looked on in horror, his eyes fixed on Henry's angry face. He knew he had to get out of there, fast. He slowly backed away, trying not to make any sudden movements that might provoke Henry further, but Henry's anger was not directed at Johnson. It was all focused on Maria, the woman he thought he knew, the woman he thought he loved. How could you do this to me? He repeated, his voice cracking with emotion. How could you betray me like this? Maria's voice was shaking with anger and hurt as she threw back at Henry. This is all your fault, Henry. You never listened to me, you never paid attention to my needs. All you cared about was making money, cashing out, and growing your business. You never even bothered to ask me how I felt, what I needed from you. Henry looked at her, taken aback by her outburst. What are you talking about, Maria? I provided for you, I gave you everything you needed. Maria laughed, a bitter sound. Everything I needed? You call neglecting me, ignoring my feelings, and treating me like a mere object everything I needed? You never made me feel like a woman, like I was loved and cherished. You just used me for your own convenience. Henry looked at her, his eyes narrowing. So you're saying I drove you into the arms of another man? That's not fair, Maria. You're an adult, you made your own choices. Maria's voice rose in anger. My choices? You think I wanted to cheat on you? You think I wanted to fall in love with another man? No, Henry, you pushed me into this. You neglected me, ignored me, and treated me like dirt. And then you have the nerve to ask me to go and play with the gate man? What did you expect me to do? Henry looked at her, his face pale. I didn't mean it like that, Maria. I just thought you needed some companionship, some friendship. Maria cut him off, her voice cold. Companionship? Friendship? You call playing with the gate man companionship and friendship? You're disgusting. Henry. And you know what? I'm glad I did what I did. Because now I know that I deserve better than a man like you. Henry's face crumpled, and he looked like he was about to cry. Maria, please, I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make it right. but Maria just shook her head. It's too late for apologies, Henry. You should have thought of that before you neglected me and treated me like dirt. Henry fell to his knees, pleading with Maria to forgive him. Please, Maria, forgive me. I'll do anything to make it right. I'll change, I'll be more attentive, I'll give you all the love and attention you deserve. But Maria just shook her head, her eyes cold and hard. There's no need for that, Henry. It's too late. I'm already pregnant with Johnson's child. Henry's eyes widened in shock, and he felt like he had been punched in the gut. What? No, that can't be. You're my wife, Maria. You're supposed to be loyal to me. Maria just laughed, a bitter sound. Loyal to you? You've never been loyal to me, Henry. You've never given me the attention and love I deserve. And now, I've found someone who does love me. Who does give me attention. And I'm not going to let you ruin it for me. Henry felt a wave of despair wash over him, and he began to cry. Maria, please don't go. Please don't leave me. I'll do anything, just please don't leave me. But Maria just shook her head and turned away from him. She went to the wardrobe and started packing her things. Henry watched in horror as she packed her bags and prepared to leave him. As she walked out of the bedroom, Henry cried out in pain. Maria, please don't go. Please don't leave me. But Maria just kept walking, leaving Henry alone in the bedroom. Henry sat there, crying and shedding tears, feeling like his whole world had come crashing down around him. As he sat there, he realized that he had learned a valuable lesson. He had learned that every man out there should learn how to give his wife attention, how to make her feel loved and cherished. Because if he didn't, someone else would. This is a lesson to me and all men, Henry said, his voice shaking with emotion. We should learn how to give our wives attention, how to make them feel loved and cherished. Because if we don't, someone else will. And I've learned that the hard way.